What's up, everybody? Welcome to On the Fringe podcast, episode number 1. My name is Ryan Lankowski. I'll be the host of this podcast, and the purpose of it is we are going to interview gym owners around Austin, Texas area, see how they did it, figure out how they became successful gym owners, and hopefully help one of you guys open up a gym one day. For our first guest, we have the esteemed Tim Thibodeau, owner of Gameday Barbell, here at a powerlifting gym here in Austin, Texas. A lot more than a powerlifting gym nowadays. Tim, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us what you are, what you do.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Welcome to On the Fringe. My name is Tim Thibodeau, one of the owners of Gameday Barbell here in Austin, Texas. Moved down here, it's going to be 4 years in July, mainly to just build a community here in the Austin, Texas area. I mean, Texas, let's be honest, all the best athletes come out of Texas, all the strongest athletes come out of Texas. And me being involved in the powerlifting scene for a little over a decade now, I figured if I'm going to be opening a gym somewhere, then I'm going to be doing it definitely in Texas. I actually wanted to open up a gym back home in New Jersey years ago because back in university, I was kicked out of the school gym for recording in there, for using chalk, for deadlifting, pretty much everything that commercial gyms don't allow you to do, I got kicked out for. And I thought as my way to stick it to that school gym, I'm like, I'm going to open my own gym one day. But I never really found the right time to do it. I bought a bunch of plates. COVID struck, sold the plates, but then I just told myself I'm going to take a leap of faith. I moved down here, and it seemed that Austin was a growing city, and I'm part of the problem. I moved down here, so sorry, Austinites. But yeah, I mean, it's been a very cool, difficult ride so far. It's like I wouldn't say that this is a journey for everybody. Not to say that gym owners are the next best thing to slice bread, but it's definitely a difficult venture.
Thanks. So I want to back up just a little bit. So you were working out in commercial gyms, wasn't working out for you. So out of spite, you decided you wanted to open up your own gym. What was the initial process like? Like when you're first looking at locations, when you're buying the equipment, what were some things that you found were more difficult than anticipated or easier than you anticipated?
I would even say that the most difficult thing was just research. And even before that, looking for things in gyms that you currently go to and you don't like, you sort of nitpick all. Like if I was the owner of this space, what would I do differently? Mm-hmm. Because I went to probably 6 or 7 different gyms while I was powerlifting back in New Jersey, and they were great gyms. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, again, what would I do differently if I owned the space? So like I said, eventually got to a point where it was like, okay, I'm gonna go full in on this. I would say coming up with a name is definitely the most difficult part because you want something to be punchy. You don't want it to be, too related to the gym, like welcome to Strength Gym, welcome to World Gym, or any of those things like that. You want it to be unique, because that's your identity at the end of the day. So I would say the hardest part for us was just forming a name for the company itself. But then you do all these calculations thinking that you're going to require X amount of money to open a space, and then you run into all these unforeseen costs. So I would say creating a budget and forming a name for the company are definitely the most difficult things. But even before that is compiling a list of all the things that you don't like about gyms that you already go to. Nice.
So when forming that budget, right, how much do you think is like allotted to a space? How much allotted to the equipment, right? Is there a breakdown as much as you're comfortable with the budget when you were first looking at it? Right? Were you saying, okay, I want to spend 50% of my budget on the space and the rest on equipment or some on marketing? How did that work out?
If I were to put it to percentages, I would say 30% was spent on the space just because Texas is very lenient when it comes to real estate. Yep. Like definitely better than the East and the West Coast. It's just way too expensive on either side of the country. So if you're going to be allocating X percentage to your location, you want to save as much money as possible. So negotiating with the landlord, getting 3 months of rent, not turning utilities on for a little bit, because that's actually what we did. We worked in the dark for probably a month to save on a little bit of money. Wow. But definitely 30% went to the location, and then the remaining, I would say 65% went to equipment, and then the 5% went to marketing. And with equipment, it's really going to depend on what type of space you're trying to outfit. Obviously, with more specialized things like powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, that equipment's going to be a little bit more expensive, especially if you're trying to cater to a more like a competitive type of environment for athletes to actually step on the platform and compete, that equipment's going to be a little bit more expensive.
Of course.
Whereas if you're trying to outfit a just regular strength training facility, have a bunch of bodybuilding equipment, have a couple of rigs in there, like you could easily find used equipment that's in decent shape and save on a ton of money that way instead of going out and spending like every single dollar that you have on brand new equipment.
So so I know you opened the gym up with people. You kind of had a team of guys that you were working with, some owners, some just helping you out. Was there anybody that you kind of had as a mentor that you knew already owned a gym, or were you just like, hey, I'm going to go do this on my own and figured it out as you went?
It kind of goes back to all the gyms that I nitpicked back when I was in New Jersey. And that's kind of it's kind of a shady thing, admittedly. It honestly is, because you have this idea planted that I'm going to open my own space one day, but you don't want them to know that. So you're like throwing in these little questions like, hey, how come you do this that way? And like, what would you do differently? And again, that goes into the research process. So like, I don't know if mentor is a good word for it, but I guess unintended guidance along the way was all the gym owners that I became, and they still are friends to this day, but all the gym owners that I became friends with back home before opening this space.
Right. I mean, that's got to be super important, right? Because if you don't like a gym, you want to know why, because if you don't like it, there's probably a lot of other people that don't like it. So I know powerlifting gym primarily, you also have some bodybuilding equipment, some weightlifting equipment, kind of an all-around type of gym now, but I know you originally started as a powerlifting gym. Was that just because you were a powerlifter and that's the kind of gym you liked, or was there another reason behind it?
That's mostly it. It's kind of all I knew. I didn't know anything about Olympic weightlifting. Bodybuilding, everybody's been to a commercial gym at least once, so you know what equipment you should outfit your space with, but that's really all we knew. So with my thought process, I'm really good at this, so let me go all in on it. So we built competition spec platforms. We provided everybody with the best competition equipment available to them. Basically, I wanted to spoil all of our members, because with me, I wanted to give them something that I didn't get when I first started powerlifting. And I figured if I could give this to a beginner lifter and they get super invested in the sport because they're lifting on comp bars, comp plates, they're getting the full experience, then let's just go all in on that. But eventually we sort of capped with the amount of powerlifters that we pulled, because like powerlifting, it's still a very large and growing sport, but it's still a niche type of thing.
100%.
Whereas regular strength athletes, you're going to find them pretty much everywhere you go. So that's when we decided to expand into Olympic weightlifting a little bit more, because we started off with 2 platforms and now we have 8 today. And then invested a little bit more in the bodybuilding space, because we wanted to attract that Gen Pop crowd, but then it got to a point where our powerlifters were asking us, hey, can we have XYZ pieces of equipment, because they wanted to, do their accessories a little bit better. We prioritized powerlifting, realized that the world doesn't revolve around that.
For sure.
And then expanded into everywhere else.
Nice. And so something that I get asked a lot as a salesperson working at Fringe, I work with a lot of gym owners, and the number one thing that nobody seems to understand is floor space, right? And I'm sure you as a powerlifting gym, even originally and now expanding into more than that, floor space, because you have to allocate so much for platforms, so much for bench stations, so much for squat racks, all of those types of things. So let's talk about your first space, because we'll get to the new space here in a minute. But your first space, how was that, figuring out the floor plan? Did you move it after you got everything in there? Did it end up the way you originally thought it would?
Right. So with the first space, there was this huge dividing wall, because it was technically 2 separate suites, and the smaller one, we figured that we would make that sort of a training hall for all of our powerlifters. So we were able to set up 6 combo racks in a row, and then we eventually doubled that to 12 combo racks and just kept powerlifting all contained there. And looking back on it, I probably would have kept it the same, but then we eventually flipped the gym to where if a lot of the people are going to be showing up for powerlifting and that's where it's going to be populated most of the time, then we want that to be in the front of the gym. We want that to be exposed to anybody that walks into the door. And the other reason we did that was for events, because we hosted a lot of powerlifting meets at the old facility, and it was just a lot easier to move all those platforms around versus moving machines around, especially the selectorized machines that just weigh a ton. So that was kind of our original intention, was create a really good experience by having a training hall for the powerlifters, having another separate area for the weightlifters, and then having the bodybuilders be more towards the front of the facility. But again, things change based on how long you're in business. You're seeing what works, what doesn't work, what do you want to expose people more to. But if I could do it all over again, I would keep the original one and then just suck it up and move the machines for each event.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. And floor space, I mean, I cannot tell you how many gym owners I've talked to that they buy all the equipment, then they get it in their gym and it doesn't fit, right? Like they buy a rig that's too big, they buy a bunch of machines that don't fit their space, all that kind of stuff. So I've always thought floor space is one of those things that not enough people think about whenever they're opening their gym. And so you alluded to it a couple times, but mentioning like the combo racks, the specialized equipment that you need to be a powerlifting gym, like calibrated plates, that kind of stuff. When you were first looking into buying that equipment, you had mentioned you bought some that was secondhand, some new. How was that process when you said about 65% of your budget was allocated to equipment? How did you determine like what was okay to buy used and what you really should probably buy new?
Right. So the comp equipment and the limited weightlifting equipment we just bought that brand new. Just because, again, if we're going to be specializing in this, then we want to give people the best. But with the machines, I don't really believe in brand loyalty for machines. If it's a good piece of if it's a good piece of equipment, then just purchase it. Even if you could find it at like even $1,000 off, just go and buy it. Like a chest press machine, most of them do the same thing.
Sure.
So just buy a somewhat reputable brand if you could find it at a lower cost, and that's what we did for all of our bodybuilding machines. And I would say that we saved probably. If we were to buy everything brand new, we probably would have paid upwards of $25,000 more for all the equipment. So that's $25,000 that we saved just by buying like refurbished equipment.
Yeah, and being a brand new gym owner, $25,000 is a lot of money.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean it's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'm sure, right? So talking about your journey through opening the gym and everything, what's it been like since? Right, like how do you bringing members in, keeping members, hosting events, because you guys host a ton of events here in Austin, sanctioned and unsanctioned, right? So how has that been as far as becoming a successful gym? Because everybody can open, not everybody, but a lot of people could go open a gym, but there's not a lot of people who can open a successful gym and keep it open, right?
Yeah.
And you've been open for 4 years now, right? So how has that been?
I would say, I mean, with the events specifically, not a lot of private gyms host events, and that's kind of what our competitive advantage is. Because like you could go to any gym, pick up a barbell, lift weights, and go home. You could do that anywhere.
Sure.
But what's going to keep you at Gameday Barbell? It's going to be the events. It's going to be the community. So for any new gym owner, it's really finding what sets yourself apart and just really investing into that. And if it works, then just lean more into that. So yeah, just building a community, having them support us at events, and we found that works. So let's just keep going with that. Now, what else can we add on to that? So it's finding one unique thing at a time, and then just keep stacking it up.
Nice. And so talking to new gym owners or even gym owners that are in the very early stages of trying to open something up, what would be like, if you could give just one big piece of advice to them, what would be like something you wish somebody had told you in the beginning?
Oh, you're going to be here a lot. You're going to be here a lot. And this isn't to scare anybody, but opening a gym, if you do that with the intention of making money, you're going to fail on day one. You want to do this because you're passionate about providing people a good space to train, because you're passionate about fitness yourself. And just because you love fitness, that doesn't mean you should open a gym. Like, let's just get that very clear. That's like saying, oh, I really love hamburgers, so I'm going to go farm cows now. It's not really the same thing. So just understand you're going to be investing a lot of your time into this space. And the second you stop investing your time, that's when things might take a little bit of a downturn. And it's still something that I'm learning today. Even going 4 years into business, which is still pretty crazy to say, the more the business grows, the more time you're going to have to invest into the business.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, especially, I mean, now we can talk about your new space, right? You guys are continuing to grow over the last 4 years and continuing to get more popular. So let's talk about your new space. You guys just moved, what, a month ago now?
Yeah, it's going on 2 months now, yeah.
So tell me about that process. What triggered it? Why'd you move? How's the move been? I know I was on the inside of it a little bit.
Yeah.
So how's that?
The main reason we moved was the lack of insulation and air conditioning in the old building.
That is such a big deal that nobody thinks about.
Texas is very hot. We all know this. And some people love training in the heat. I for one, actually enjoy it. But not a lot of strength athletes do, and that's totally fine because they want to be performing at their best. So you want to provide them a space where they're going to be able to perform their best. So that's really what triggered the move. And we were already sort of coming up on our lease, which is a story for another time. But I would say finding real estate today is definitely a lot better than when we first came down right after everybody got out of quarantine.
Yeah.
Because we took the first building that we could, and
wow.
if it was up to me, we would have started a lot smaller, and then scale up from there. But bringing it back to this space, we just saw all the problems that we had with the old space, like that dividing wall, people not seeing all the equipment right off the bat, and the lack of air conditioning, and we said enough is enough. And if we really want to take this business to the next level, it's a huge risk, yeah, but everybody's been happy with the space so far. The air conditioning itself is fantastic.
Immediately worth it.
Yeah, immediately.
Worth
Even the heat during the winter, people have been thanking us for that.
Yeah.
But even then, it's just making the space a little bit more cohesive with all the equipment, because we're very community based to the point where lifters from all of our facets, so weightlifting, powerlifting, just general strength, everybody is supporting each other, because with all these different facets, you'll see a degree of tribalism where
100%.
Olympic weightlifters are like, oh, I don't like powerlifters or anything like that.
Well, it's because we're better than you.
You are, and I've learned that myself. But no, everybody here, like if someone's going for a heavy deadlift, you'll get some weightlifters cheering on the person deadlifting, and that's cool.
Yeah.
And that's what I really like about this open space, is that there's no dividing walls. Everybody's able to see everybody, and also just the layout of the equipment, kind of going back to flooring, what you were mentioning before. It just made it so much easier for us to place all the equipment. Actually, going to ask you a question now.
Okay.
What do you think of the layout of this space? Because it's all the same equipment.
Yeah.
There's nothing different.
Which is shocking to me, by the way,
Yeah.
right? Like, because I did a lot of time at your old space, and having spent some time here now, it looks like a completely different gym, right? I would never believe. I definitely thought you had added some equipment, right? And I think the last space was really good, kind of like you were mentioning earlier. But that dividing wall really felt like it just divided. I mean, I don't remember seeing a ton of people using like the bodybuilding equipment and the dumbbells and everything. It always seemed like everybody was just in the first half of the room.
Yeah.
And now coming here a few times and even training here, the open concept, the turf down the middle, you got the awesome mural, the machines are just kind of right next to everything else. I think it's awesome. I will say the open concept makes it feel, like you said, much more community based, because I am one of the weightlifters who you normally would not like cheer on a power lifter, right? Like, not because I don't like them or because I don't respect their discipline, but because that's not what I do.
Yeah.
Right. But even here, watching some people do some big bench presses, which is something that I can't do, or having somebody cheer me on for a clean or a jerk or something like that, it's incredible. And I really don't think there's a ton of gyms out there that do this kind of style of place. And I really commend you on that, because the community, that was the number one thing that drew me to you guys in the first place. So for those that don't know, Tim actually helps us out. He's our videographer at Fringe. And the way we found him was going and just doing some content shoots at his gym because we liked their content. And that was like what drew me to you guys' gym in the first place, was the sense of community. It was a place that, as a weightlifter, I'm not there by myself all the time. There's powerlifters there that actually care about the lifts. So yeah, I think it's awesome. I think the new space is absolutely incredible.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's great to hear.
Yeah. And I know it took a lot of work too, right? I know that like you guys were here till 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning from the previous night, moving equipment around, moving stall mats around, all of that. So, I mean, it's incredible.
That's actually another piece of advice that I wish I got. Setting up a gym is going to take a very long time, so spread out that time as much as you can. Don't try to do everything in 1 or 2 weeks. Give yourself at least 2 months to outfit your space.
Wasn't this your second time doing it though?
It is, but because one thing led to another, and we only had 9 days to outfit the space, because we couldn't keep the gym closed for a month, because that's a
good point.
That's a source of revenue.
100%.
Yeah, and even if even not moving locations or anything, you always want to be giving your members a little bit of a heads up. So thankfully, everybody was understanding when we move locations. But if we told them like, "Hey, we're going to be closed for a month, but we can't tell you why because we wanted it to be a surprise,"
Sure.
then that's half of our membership just gone right there because of irritation. But yeah, always give yourself some grace and time when setting up a gym.
And so we briefly mentioned this. So this is I'm going to take a hard right here for a second, talking about stall mats and flooring and turf. How did you come to the decision that stall mats are what you wanted to do? Because they are not easy to move around, right?
Yeah.
Like when choosing the flooring for your space, because that's something that a lot of gym owners don't think about either, is you need to have some sort of rubber flooring for your gym. And there's a lot of different options out there. What made you draw to the stall mats? Was it just cost, ease of installation?
Definitely. Cost is definitely the biggest one because the rolled out flooring, even though it's thinner, it still costs significantly more.
Yep.
I don't know why. Welcome to the industry.
Yeah.
But yeah, stall mats were definitely the cost and ease of moving for the most part. But it's because at the old space, and I'll throw up some clips if I have them, but it was mostly just bare concrete.
Yeah.
And because of us having to keep the bay doors open all the time, because again, no air conditioning, all the dust kept getting into the facility. Everything was dirty all the time. And that's just something I didn't really want to experience ever again. So that's why me and my business partner decided, let's just floor the entire space. And honestly, it looks like a gym now. And granted, even if we didn't floor the entire thing, it would still look better than the old space.
Sure.
But there's just something about having just all black floors and just covering up any of those imperfections that just makes the space look so much better. It's going to be not everybody's cup of tea, but there's been a couple bodybuilding gyms that I've been to. There's this one gym called The Shop in Virginia. They actually have 2 locations. It's this huge bodybuilding facility, and all their equipment is just on bare concrete. But they sealed and they waxed the floors all the time, so it looks pristine every single time. And I think they dyed it also to give it a little bit of a unique look. But it's just going to vary from location to location. I would say for the most part, most gym owners should just stall mat their entire space.
Yeah.
And it also soundproofs it a little bit too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, dropping weights on hard concrete isn't the best sound in the world, especially when you paid all that money for the equipment, right? Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So what's next for you? What's next for Gameday? What's next for the industry, right? I feel like we're in an environment in today's world where fitness is more popular than it's ever been, right? And, that has its good points and its bad points for sure. But I think mostly it's positive, the growth of the fitness industry. So you guys just moved into this brand new, awesome location. Obviously, you're bought in for the future, right? What's next for you guys?
I would actually say, and this is going to be a little bit weird compared to our original intention, but actually just capturing more of a Gen Pop community.
For sure.
Because we're located very close to Mueller. We're not too far away from the domain where there's a lot of people working corporate jobs. So we sort of want to capture that market to fill that dead space in the middle of the day, and also tap into personal training a little bit. We're actually in a pretty good location where there's 3 or 4 neighborhoods around us where it's very family oriented. ACC's right down the road. And it's just getting people into fitness because, again, we've sort of captured that market already where if you're in the know, then you're going to come here. If you're a serious lifter, you'll probably be here. But now what about everybody else? What about getting that population into fitness? So now the mission statement is just getting people involved in fitness, even if they're brand new.
They don't have to be a serious lifter. And I think that is a really good point even for newer gym owners, because there is a level of elitism when you're talking about fitness in all disciplines, right? Whether it's bodybuilding, powerlifting, weightlifting, whatever it is, there's a level of elitism for the guys that really take it, guys and ladies who take it really serious, and then everybody else. Yeah. Right? And I think a lot of gym owners fall into the trap and want to cater to just the elite because they're the ones that are all over Instagram, they're posting all the time, everybody's following them, all that kind of stuff. When in reality, it's really the general population that is the bulk of the community, right? Yeah. So I think that's awesome. Well, Tim, I really appreciate you, man, sitting down to do this with us. We'll be doing more episodes just like this. If you are in Austin, Texas and want to check out Tim's space, Gameday Barbell, come check it out. We're over here in North Austin, kind of near Cameron and 183. We'll drop the address in the link as well. So Tim, I appreciate you, brother. Always a pleasure.
Good episode.